What's up, guys? We have a different video today. I'm here with Kamal, who's a member of the Palaview community. Kamal, how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, so I'm a 15-year-old from Canada. I'm currently in my high school, so grade 11, so I'm a junior. I
Okay.
have worked on two startups in the past, one being in the kind of food and drink sector. So I'm from Malaysia. We make traditional Malaysian desserts, and that's kind of the entire product, as well as this one, which is Condensave in the kind of sustainable development industry. And what we do is we have systems that redirect and count and eventually will uh, provide kickbacks to the consumer for providing water and from their air conditioning units to the existing city infrastructure. So what we do essentially is, if I can just share my screen here.
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay, cool. Uh,
Yeah, great.
so
And by the way, guys, this is my first time hearing about all this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we start with air pollution, now the biggest problem with air conditioning units themselves is that they are usually most concentrated in urban areas, which already have worse air pollution in general.
Yeah.
And what they do is they condensate water as a part of the process, and then they just drain it outside on the side of the condenser. So what this can do is, as soon as the water is dumped outside, it will usually get evaporated by the sun. And in these urban environments where there's already high fine particulate matter in the air, these
Yeah.
water vapor droplets will bond to those larger particulate matter, kind of dust and stuff like things coming out of your car exhaust as well. And what this will do is it will then weigh down the entire molecule and hold it lower in the atmosphere where humans are rebreathing it before it can go
Hmm.
and be part of the natural water cycle. So here, over 6.6 million deaths in 2019 are kind of indirectly related to air pollution, but it is a major catalyst for things like cancers, different infections, and like spread of bacteria. Now, this is on par with dietary risks as well as um, literally this is obesity, high body mass index, as well
Yeah.
as almost on the same level as tobacco. So it's a huge, huge, huge issue.
Wow.
And even in some areas, it is so bad that things like children are held back from school. I know this is a case in New Delhi, especially in Mumbai as well. And people can't go to work, so they're stuck at home.
Well, just to jump in for a second, because I don't think people in our modern world, especially at our age group, I'm 28, you're 15,
Mhm.
understand how new air conditioning is and how like certain environments like Malaysia, like where I am in Puerto Rico, the concept of living in these places comfortably is kind of a new thing, right? So one of the things that I'm very passionate about here is a huge proportion of the classrooms here in Puerto Rico don't even have air conditioning units inside of them. So for me, I'm constantly thinking about like these, bipartisan issues, like what isn't a left or right issue. Like everyone agrees that any kid living in a tropical island should have a classroom with an AC unit in it so that he can concentrate because I couldn't concentrate with or without AC, right? So that being said, air conditioning is a new thing, right? So I think what you're suggesting is that we can level up how we interact with our air conditioning units as consumers to lower the pollution, or like kind of like what from where I just kind of get left off from, how would you kind of continue the argument from there?
Yeah, so the way that I'm kind of proposing we use our air conditioning units is we see them not only as kind of just a luxury, but
Yeah.
we also can have because they're very expensive to run. They take a lot of energy. And so what I'm saying is in the areas where there is high water scarcity and
Yeah.
low levels of accessible water, but high usage of air conditioning, we should be able to not recycle, but introduce the water that is being condensed naturally into the water system. And then as a consumer, you're the one paying for the electricity, so you should get a kickback on the water that you're providing. So kind of the idea of solar energy here in North America. You have, you pay what 20,000 on the high end to have solar installed. And then you get a certain percentage back depending on how much you generate. And let's say 1 month you generate more than you use, you can sell it back to the grid.
Okay. So let's run through that one more time. And I just want you to be a little bit more specific regarding
Mhm,
how much water is being lost. Like, say, like if you have it in percentage terms, that would be great. Like, if because I know I have a good sense for how much water I'm using when I run my like laundry machine, right? And that's brown water, right? And like we can
mhm,
and people like use that brown water. Maybe I'm getting the terminology incorrectly, but a lot of people will like in their like when they clean their dishes, right? They'll plug the water. Like I've got some hippie friends who'll do this. They'll plug the drain. They'll allow all the dishwater and the dish soap water to just accumulate, and then they'll take it out to their garden, and then they'll use that, right?
yeah.
So like,
So
yeah,
yeah, so it's kind of a similar thing. What will sometimes happen, the issue with using water from air conditioning units is because these are they produce between 15 and 40 liters a day.
okay, that's
Um,
more than I thought for sure.
like 3.5 gallons to about 10 gallons.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and this is an individual air conditioner. So the ones that you'll find not very commonly here in North America where
Yeah, like the
you
split
just have
units. I
one in
just
the
had
house.
three. I just yeah,
Yeah.
like the split ones, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
I literally just had three reinstalled at my house here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so what that does is that water, that's a significant amount of water, especially since the average usage in a lot of developing countries is still around the 500 liter mark. So
Yeah.
in North America, it's very high. It's around 1,100 liters a day
Yeah.
of usage. But that if we had um, 10, let's say we had 40 liters produced a day, and you're using 500 liters, that's almost 10% of your daily water usage is being directly wasted to the air. So
That's
I'd
crazy.
say
Yeah.
it's pretty significant. Yeah. And then if we just look at like a kind of global map of water consumption, we can see
Hmm.
that between 1900, just over the last 100 years, water consumption has like 5x'd in the world, and it's not going to change, especially with the use of things like data centers. I know in making this a Malaysia
Yeah.
specific problem,
No,
there's,
water
yeah,
water demand's not going down, and air conditioning demand is actually probably going to go exponentially up
yeah,
because what
yeah,
happens is access to cheaper electricity becomes more abundant. And as a direct causal relationship to greater access to cheap electricity is demand for fucking air conditioning units, right? And
yeah,
you understand this very well because you come from Malaysia, which is hot, humid, and not terribly rich right now, right? But
yeah,
it's becoming more so.
yeah. And so uh, I was saying that, okay. So not only is it water consumption that's going up, but also this kind of water that's being already pulled from natural sources.
Yeah,
As the world continues to urbanize further, it becomes more concentrated, and then furthers the issue of what we need to do. And another problem is in areas with extreme like water supply issues. What will happen is they will have inconsistent flow into water treatment facilities, and their infrastructure will often go dry. And
yep,
that makes it incredibly difficult to maintain a quality of safety when they're treating the water because there's a certain kind of amount that you have to treat fully with no kind of gaps to ensure that it is safe.
right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So here, wait, go back to that image,
Mhm.
that slide real quick. Can you describe to me what you're showing in that bottom right image?
Yeah, so this bottom right image is an image of a water treatment facility in Ontario, so
Okay.
down in the south of Canada. Um, and this one itself doesn't have issues of water scarcity, but these are um, sediment tanks. So what they will do is they will just leave the water in these tanks and allow for things like dirt and different kind of pollutants in the water to go to the bottom, and then they will continue on the treatment process. However, when these go dry, what happens is you can see that there are kind of mixers or the arms that will rotate. They
Mm,
will not be lubricated properly, and they will usually malfunction. So that's one thing that will happen, as well as the piping itself. So the plumbing in these facilities will have a high risk of failure if they do go dry and sit for
okay.
extended periods of time without use.
Got it.
Yeah, so where do we come into play?
Yeah.
So, first of all, when an air conditioning unit produces condensate, it is usually completely dumped outside where it evaporates, contributing to air pollution, right? So, we don't want any of that. We want to put it back into the system and help air pollution and water pollution. So, what do? We
And just to
redirect
be
it.
super clear, sorry, just to be super
Mhm,
clear, the when the dirty water that is created from the air conditioning units is evaporated, it is a pollutant in our atmosphere.
mhm.
Just to
Yeah,
be super clear. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And so what do? We redirect it. So we work with our plumbing system as well as our device itself that tracks and kind of gives analytics on the amount of water being reintroduced.
Yeah.
So we redirect it into household plumbing. It will either be put underneath your sink, into your laundry room, or into your shower drain. So we are trying our best to kind of lower the cost the most as possible, and keep uh, like using things that are already installed in the home and just adding on top of it. So
Okay.
the treatment, number three, this is a huge area of kind of uncertainty when we're uh, presenting our product, as people assume that we are treating the water ourselves. What we
Mm,
don't want to do is introduce water safety risks. So allowing water to be treated at a household level gives risk for inconsistent treatment. So, for example, if I had house number one and they were treating their house with chlorine and fluoride, and number two was not treating their house with chlorine or fluoride, then you can see that there's immediately a disconnect between two homes that introduces water safety risks. So to keep practices consistent throughout, let's say, a city, we give the water to the city grid and infrastructure to process it and then send it back to homes.
interesting.
And then
Okay.
for the fourth, our compensation, what we do is this is where we are looking into DePIN and tokenization to kind of see how we can compensate the homeowners to offset like their utility bills
Yeah.
through the use of this product. And then all the money would eventually be paid through the app or through the blockchain as kind of subsidy or offset. And
Right.
finally, this increases water supply benefiting the government as well as the homeowner, and it can result in almost a so at an adoption of 0.01%. I'm not sure if I have the okay, yeah. So if we had an adoption, so there's 2 billion units in the world that's estimated, that's a low estimate. At 0.1% adoption, which is still very high, we can assume 15 liters of water per day per unit. That is 300 million liters per 24 hours that is directly recycled, and
Okay.
is
Okay.
put back in periods.
Yeah. No, this is what they teach you to do at school. This is good.
Mhm.
Um, now let's go back to the slide right before this. The other one with the flow chart kind of thing, the 1 through 5. Yeah, perfect. So a couple things I want to point out. A lot of people are home consumers or are already filtering their own water at home. So I think that we might run into a problem theoretically, especially given because if we use this helium example, right? When a helium is like pitching you, hey, Kamal,
Mhm.
I want you to buy this router so that in it, you plug it into your outlet and you just leave it by a window and you get tokens, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty simple for a consumer, no? So they just plug it in near a window. That's pretty much the instructions and they connect it to an app. Connecting this is going to be a little bit more sophisticated. You're going to need
Mhm.
someone who's got a little bit more of a technical know-how. So I would argue that your target for this concept wouldn't actually be the homeowner itself. It would be the AC companies that are doing these installations. And the AC business is the one that you're selling to as a B2B play. And you're more
Mhm.
trying to build like a because having this kind of tokenized model internationally that incentivizes these AC businesses in each of these, different cities, countries, whatever, that could be really, really interesting, especially because they're the ones who are probably going to have their relationships with the local water authorities anyway, no?
Hmm. Absolutely.
So I think that that is probably going to be a higher leverage adjustment to this overall concept so that you're not just running around in circles trying to
Hmm.
convince and educate people on how to, because that's just going to, you're going to lose so much time in just educating people on how to install these things versus it'll take you 2 seconds with one of these AC engineers to get him up to speed on how to
Hmm.
install it. And you guys have a pretty nice intersection of we and me for them to where their game theory for growing their business
Hmm.
benefits from growing your business,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no,
Cool.
super, super good point. So here we have kind of a just rough draft of the application. And then for our counter itself, we originally were using the Karman vortex flow meter, which works by the direction of water is, let's say this way, you will have a bluff, so a piece that does not move. And then as the water hits it, it will vortex around. And then there's a counter that counts the frequency of the vortexes. Now, the huge kind of challenge when we were designing a um, counter for the water itself
Mm,
was that it is inconsistent flow and it is low pressure.
yes,
So,
those are both
um,
problems.
mhm. So what we decided to do is I worked at the university in my city, and we are currently we have very, very promising kind of developments with the way that we are going to count water, as well as how we can do so at low concentrations and kind of low flow and still do it accurately. So that's kind of the largest part that we differentiate ourselves, um, as well as our plumbing system. We have done two prototypes already and are in partnership with a water kind of conservation company already in Eastern Canada that will allow us to kind of go and help us develop a product quicker. So we are hoping to be like commercially ready by March, April of this year.
Okay. So let's slow this down a little bit and let's get to like the first principles of what your
Mhm.
goal is. Because really you have a lot of parallel goals here. You need a software application, you need a hardware product, and you need partnerships to deploy these hardware products and that then manifest in
Yeah.
software, right? So I think that that would be a very good exercise for you is just to kind of think about, well, I realistically, because I'm Kamal, I'm 15 years old, I only have so many resources and people who are helping me out with this. Which thing should I focus on getting finished first? In my opinion, it would be most beneficial to you to define and secure a test site first before the software, before the hardware, because then you can leverage that partnership, especially if there's some kind of royalty or
Mhm.
some kind of um, if there is a path to cash flow, right? Through the contract that you negotiate with whatever called a trial site, right? In that, in your stated example in Canada,
Mhm.
I would secure that partnership first. And then
Okay.
on the side with new partners, raise capital for the hardware product. And ideally, you also want to partner with some group that's doing something similar anyway. So finding a manufacturer who's already building similar kind of things to this would be ideal, where you're instead, getting a discounted rate on something that they're building
Mhm.
versus you having to go innovate and build your own completely from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And then once you have that relationship secured, then you can go in-house. You and your buddies can figure out the software thing and build that on your own. Because really, you as in like the condensed save, like we have to think about how you are making money. How are you returning capital to your investors? Where do you want to be generating revenue and where do you not want to be generating revenue, right?
Mhm.
Because like for me, I think that you want to be generating revenue from the token and the relationship that your system has to the AC like partner, right? So
Mhm.
like you want to like sell like a package essentially to each of these like AC businesses in each of these countries, right? Like, hey, here's a package for you to deploy 1,000 of these little condensate units in your in that
Yeah.
city, right? And so and they just base and like almost like the and how the AC provider then negotiates a deal with the homeowner. The homeowner might not even have to know that this unit is even operating on their fucking AC unit. You know,
Mhm.
when you do it
Mhm.
this way, like it could actually be there are different laws in different cities, right? But it could actually be completely legal for these AC businesses to install these without even the homeowner knowing, right? And that I think is an ideal situation for you where you are selling bulk orders to these AC units, AC companies, right?
Mhm.
That are
Yeah.
doing these installations. You prove out in Canada that you guys can do it competently and you prove the protocol or
Mhm.
create a technical manual for how to that this actually cash flows back to them. And then, you do your social media thing, you promote this token, and, you show like, hey, the relationship between the token and the amount of water being saved on a daily basis, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
cool.
So yeah, this is kind of our entire product.
Hmm.
And then that is our projected impact. So this is like really kind of iffy in the calculation, not only because we, like you mentioned, our consumer itself is not like fully concrete, as well as the amount of water produced heavily depends on the humidity in the air.
Yeah,
So in a place like Puerto Rico or really anywhere like tropical and hot, there will be a lot more production compared to, let's say, you're in Saudi Arabia, in the middle of the desert, where there is very low
right,
humidity.
right.
Um, and finally, comparison to kind of our market. Right now we have kind of one competitor is commercial and one competitor is purely within the home. So what our first one is Future AC. So Future AC is a startup in the UK that specializes in home filtration. The big issue with this is that it is incredibly expensive as well as hard to maintain, and the benefits are lower and there's high risk. So they do not use anything for drinking. They will usually put it and use it for refrigerating, or in your bathroom, they will use it for kind of flush water. However, a issue with AC units is that with heat and humidity inside of the tubing itself in the air conditioning unit, it's very common to have growths of Legionella,
Yeah,
which is a bacteria that is kind of uh, infectious to humans as well and quite dangerous. So this introduces that risk to inside of your home in the bathroom, which is not a place that you want to have more bacteria, right? And
right.
then second of all, just using a regular bucket underneath your air conditioning unit, why not? So number one, because the areas that we were anticipating targeting, so let's say you live in an apartment building, you don't have a balcony, and you have an AC unit on the outside, right?
Okay.
You are not going to be able to feasibly collect it in a bucket like that, as well as if you're collecting in an open air container, there's still a significant amount that will be lost to evaporation throughout the day.
Yeah, and most people are living in apartments, so it's not even, yeah.
Mhm. And then again, this is kind of Canada specific, but the way that I want to see this kind of go forward is, like you mentioned before, we get together and create a really strong kind of product itself, and then get a really good idea of who we want to partner with and go towards raising capital at the end.
Cool. Cool,
So
cool,
yeah.
cool. So, all right. So let's walk through this presentation a little bit so that I can
Mhm.
give you some feedback as to like where to cut down, where to add to this, so that when
Mhm.
you're actually presenting this to people who could give you money, you can make it as efficient as possible because money
Mhm.
guys like efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So is this the first page or is this like the table of contents?
Yeah, this is kind of the table of contents.
Okay. So the problem, the solution, impact industry. Okay, I like it. Let's go to, so I guess just skip through it all because we already kind of saw some of this, right? Defining the problem, that's great. Defining I guess one way to think about it is um like there's a meta problem, right? Air pollution. And then
Hmm.
there's a smaller problem with water, right? So like that's one way to just simplify it further is like
Okay.
big problem,
Yeah.
actionable like solution kind of thing, right? So you're saying like there's this big problem, this smaller problem contributing to this big problem. Here's a solution. And
Mhm.
the solution is this is a really good slide. I like this a lot. Maybe just take down a little bit of the like I would maybe make it a little bit more of a consistent format. Like you see how under
Mhm.
condensate, it's like centered versus on the other ones, it's like a left thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
So just like getting those things tightened up. But again, the one thing that I always found difficult when I was doing this, like when I was doing what you're doing right now, is understanding that I need a pitch deck for my investors. I need my pitch deck for my partners. I need a pitch deck. Like you need pitch decks. Like you actually need a pitch deck for each type of person, right? And you need a pitch deck for each of those people. Like say I have an investor pitch deck, right? My investor pitch deck that I email them cold, right, is different from the one that I'm going to be speaking to and presenting. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
you
get
need
it.
to have a pitch deck that is explainable, like that is easy to understand with no person presenting it, and then one that is easy to understand because someone is presenting it, right? And so obviously the
Mhm.
one that has is being presented doesn't need to have as many words on the screen, right? So the less words on the screen, the better. The more simplified the ask, the better. Okay.
Absolutely.
Not that you're not achieving that, but there's always ways to make this
Yeah,
simpler.
of course. Of course. Right. And then
Yeah.
this is kind of our main like presentation of the product itself and how we kind of a diagram of how we want to implement it.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that I would transform this slide into more of a roadmap kind of thing,
mhm.
right? Where it's like this, we want to do this, that, then this, and that, right? And then
Mhm.
in the next slide after that, when you have after the roadmap is defined, you then want to present the ask. What are you looking to do right now to start this journey, this pilgrimage that is building
Mhm.
Condense Save, right?
Mhm.
Because the thing is what you're because you're so young, the main thing you want to persuade these partners, the private equity funds and the venture capital funds, is the main thing you're actually pitching them, Kamal, is I'm worthy of your investment because of who I am, Kamal, not because of this fucking idea. Fuck the idea,
Mhm.
right? They want to be persuaded by who Kamal is, okay? Because even if they're like halfway bought into this idea, but they're bought into you, they're going to invest in this idea because they're going to be confident that even if you fuck this up, they're going to back you on the next one, right?
Yeah.
That's really, as a young guy in the entrepreneurship world, that's what I, would wish I was told a little earlier on
Mhm.
is they're investing in teams. Come on. Venture capitalists do not invest in ideas, they invest in teams and people. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the thing is like these impact analysis don't spend any time
Mhm.
on this. This is
Yeah.
like this is what your entrepreneurship teacher who never did entrepreneurship told you to do, right? Is that true?
Uh,
Or am I
yeah, I've
just
never
yeah.
taken a class in school, but I get what you mean. I know.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is fine too. I mean, I would just the mark again the few the you know who your competition is like
Mhm.
maybe your buyer, right? One
Mhm.
thing to just um, think about also.
Mhm.
I have a friend. I can't really talk about it too much, but I'll put it this way: he had a partnership with a local gas station, like marketplace, kind of like market shop kind of thing,
Mhm.
and he basically got a contract that in this tiny like 8 by 8 foot by 8 foot area, they gave him a contract to run this like kiosk thing, like say like a Bitcoin ATM or something like that, right?
Mhm.
So he got a contract that he has the right to occupy that space and to then run his kiosk business inside that square footage of these 200 or so locations, right? These gas stations here in Puerto Rico, right? So he, instead of actually going out, raising money to then put the kiosks in those locations that then cash flowed, right? He sold the contract to another business and he got a royalty on each of the, new users who signed up to the kiosk. And the guy made like $5 million just because he had a contract, right? Not because he raised, like, he literally just had paperwork that gave him rights to execute and, to do this business. So I only bring this up because like, we're trained when we're young to think that in order to execute this idea, we need to go take money from other people, right? But if you get creative enough, right, you can create leverage for yourself through these contracts, right? That might allow you to cash flow this or to just literally make money on this idea without having to actually raise capital. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
And or securing a contract like I just described is going to allow you to have a way more optimal, stronger negotiating position with whoever you raise capital from, which is arguably even
Hmm.
more important than the other thing I just said, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So do you have any questions? Was this helpful?
Yeah, this is very helpful. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really, really enjoy kind of PalaView and the videos that you put out. They've been like actually quite transformative in the way that I think and like approach problems.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's very cool.